Hi everyone. So in this video, I just kind of want to show you how I want you to answer the short answer math questions on the upcoming exam. So here I just made up like a fake exam, kind of like similar to what you will see for the exam on Friday, except of course, it's not going to be these questions in particular, but I just am using this question as kind of like an example of something that you might see, something similar that to what you might see on Friday's exam, and how I kind of like want you to answer, right? So here, just to note, again, the exam is timed. You have 1 hour to complete it. So here you can actually see the time left remaining in case you need to. I set it at 60 minutes, but I've been clicked onto this page for a little bit. So whenever you open the exam, that timer will start counting down. You have to turn in your exam before that timer hits 0, right? Okay. So in any case, an example short answer like math question you might see for Friday's exam is something like this. Use the following information to answer questions 1 and 2 below. So there's just a little text box to give us info for questions 1 and 2. Consider Akihiko, who has $25 to spend on either coffee, which costs $5 per cup, or tea, which costs $4 per cup. Question 1 just says, write Akihiko's budget constraint in this form, right? The budget is equal to the price of the coffee times quantity of coffee plus price of tea times quantity of tea. So if you're familiar with how this works, again, this was something covered in chapter 2. I'll just go ahead and write out the answer. That's going to be 25 is equal to 5Q coffee plus 4Q tea. Now, this doesn't look very neat, right? Note here in the question, I have the words coffee and tea as subscripts. So I want you to do the same thing to make it easier to read for when you're typing in your answer. So this button right here is the subscript button, right? So you can see it's like X with the 2 to the bottom right of it. That's the subscript button. The superscript button is right over here, right next to it. X with the number 2 to the top right of it. So after you've written this down, I just want you to highlight the bit like there for coffee and highlight this bit here for tea. And now you have a much neater looking, easier to read looking budget constraint, right? And that's what I want to see for questions like this, right? So just like how you see in my lectures or how you see here in the prompt, how I organize it like that with a little subscript, just make sure you do the same thing. All you have to do is highlight the text you want to make a subscript, then click the button, and there you go, right? So for something like this, that's really all you need to do. It doesn't ask, like the prompt here doesn't ask show your work or anything. So this is basically all that you'll need to have down for a question like this. Now if I scroll down to question 2, and now it says write Akihiko's budget constraint in the form y equals mx plus b with the quantity of coffee purchased measured on the x-axis and the quantity of tea purchased measured on the y-axis. Show your work. So there are some make sure you pay attention to the instructions here, right? So, again, from chapter 2, we know how to convert the budget constraint to this form, right? Um, but it's saying specifically quantity of coffee should be on the x-axis, quantity of tea should be on the y-axis. So just make sure you pay attention to that. That's important. It also here says to show your work. So I actually do want to see the steps you take in order to get to your final answer. Um, So what I want you to do is start with what you had up here from before, right? So you can just copy and paste this, down. So this is your starting point, right? This is what you're starting with. But now I want to see the steps you take in order to get it to the y equals mx plus b form like what we did in class. So basically, I want you on a new line to show each new step that you do here. So for example, what I would want to do here is subtract 5Q coffee from both sides of the equal sign. So what I should have left is 4. Now, whoops, let me take out the subscript and take that off. Okay, so 4QT will then be equal to 25 minus 5Q coffee, right? Since I subtracted 5Q coffee from both sides of the equal sign. And again, just to make it neat, I will put those in subscripts, make it easier to read. I will be grading on how easy it is to follow what you're reading, right? I don't want to have to spend a lot of time trying to decipher what's going on, so please make sure it's legible, what you're doing makes sense and is logical, follows like a clear path. So from here then, what I would do is, of course, divide both sides of the equal sign by 4, right? Because I just want to have it in the y equals mx plus b form. And it says here, right, quantity of t is on the y-axis. So this is, of course, going to be my y term. So now I have qt is equal to 25 divided by 4. I know that's 6.25. And then 5 divided by 4, that will be 1.25. So that'll be Q coffee. Once again, I will put this in subscripts to make it a little bit easier to see. Also note this little bit here in the directions. If necessary, type your fractions as a decimal rounded to 3 places after the decimal point. That's just because, in my opinion, it's easier to read, in a text like this when you're typing it down in text like this. It's easier to read fractions, it's easier to read decimals compared to fractions. So anytime you have a fraction, please do it like this instead, as a decimal. Okay, just because it'll make it easier for me to read. Also, when you have multiple lines of text like this, just to make sure it's clear exactly what your final answer is, I'd also like you to bold your final answer. So this here is my final answer for this question. So I will highlight this and click the bold button. And now I can see, oh, it's, well, bolded, right? So it's easier to see. And that will also help me with the grading process. So yeah, that's for a question like this, that's all you would really have to do. You don't need to like write out to explain, oh, in this step, I want to, subtract 5Q coffee from both sides of the equal sign, or, next I want to divide by 4. You don't have to type all that out as long as each line you're just doing like one step, like one like mathematical thing, one bit of arithmetic, like in this, like going from the first line here to the second line, all I'm doing is subtracting 5Q coffee, so that's like one thing. So that should be the next line. And then after that, I am dividing by 4, so it's this line. So as long as you just take it step by step, one step at a time, and each new step is like a new line, you just hit enter, then that'll be fine. Okay, I have one last example here to show you for this, and that is here, it says use the following demand and supply schedule to answer the following question. So question 3 down here. So here we have a list of prices, 10, 12, 14, 16, list of quantity demanded here, right, QD, 5, 4, 3, 2, and quantity supplied, 5, 7, 9, 11. Okay, so here it says derive the demand function in the form P is equal to MQD plus B, show your work. Again, if necessary, type fractions as a decimal rounded to 3 places after the decimal point. Okay, so here, since it's just asking about the demand function, of course that means we want to focus on QD, quantity demanded, right, not QS. So here we want to take a look at quantity demanded, and we have the list of prices here. If you recall from earlier in chapter 3, we already learned how to do this. First things first is to calculate slope. So here I would like you to explain, like here, I'm calculating slope. To calculate slope, that is the m term, right? Or to calculate m if you want to. Either one is fine, to calculate m or to calculate the slope. That's fine. Calculate slope. There we go. Then what I want to do is first recognize that the slope m is going to be rise over run. So I can just do it like that, rise/run. But if you recall, then I need to take 2 rows of information here, 2 prices and 2 quantity demanded, and find the difference between them and then divide them. So the rise here, remember price is always on the y-axis, so it should be 10, if I'm using the first 2 rows here, 10 and 12, 10 minus 12, then divided by 5 minus 4, and what I should end up here is a slope of minus 2. So something like this is good enough to show me what you're doing, but please do include the parentheses when you're doing like the math here, right? Because I'm just going to be reading it like 10 minus 12 parenthesis, so I know that's like something I need to do first before dividing. And then 5 minus 4, again, then I know I'm doing that subtraction before doing the division here, right? Then to calculate the y-intercept, right? If I want to use the first row of information again, remember this is something that we worked out before earlier in the chapter, then what I want to do is just substitute the y equals mx plus b form. So now I have 10, which is my price, is equal to the slope, which is minus 2. I just calculated that. The x term, or qd, right, which is going to be 5. So put 5 right there, plus b, right? So I'm calculating this. So then now I get 10 is equal to minus 10 plus b, right? Again, I'm just doing like one step at a time for each new line. So hit enter. So the step I did here is just multiplied minus 2 times 5. And now in the next step, I will just add 10 to both sides of the equal sign. So now I get b is equal to 20, right? So that's not all of it though, right? Because it says to derive the demand function, which means that, you know, we have the slope, we have the y-intercept, but now I need to write out the whole thing in this format, right? P is equal to mqd plus b, which means that I want to just label it something like demand function is price is equal to minus 2 qd plus 20, right? Here's the slope of minus 2, which I calculated. Here's the y-intercept of 20 that I calculated. I want to tidy this up though. I want to turn that into a superscript, qd, right? So here is my final answer then. And what I want to do again is bold it just to make it easier to read and easier to find. Okay, and then, you know, this is just like, you know, a fake exam, whatever. So this is just something, this isn't actually the length of what the actual exam will be, of course, but you might see very similar looking questions for the short answers bit. So, you know, again, you can see the time left you have up here, but, you know, if you're done, you can just click this to submit. Okay, so yeah, that's basically how I want you to like show your work for this type of stuff, and how to like note things just to make it easier to read, you know, like superscript, subscript, all that kind of stuff, just to make it easy to read. Now, naturally, of course, you know, if this was an in-person type of class, I would just have you write on the exam itself, right? It'd just be in the classroom. You would have a printout of the exam, and you would just be writing on the exam itself. So this sort of stuff would be easier. You wouldn't have to like press these buttons to like bold it, or superscript or subscript or whatever. But considering the circumstances of, you know, remote instruction and all that, this is kind of like what I want to see. Okay, so hopefully that's all clear. In case it's not, feel free to, you know, send me an email, ask me some questions about what you find confusing, and I'll be happy to help you out. Okay, so yeah, that's it for this video, and good luck with your studying.